Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our Enabling a Productive Workforce webinar. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and it will be sent out to everyone, so please feel free to share it as needed. Also, we'd like to ask that we keep the mics muted until the end of the presentation. We'll open them up again for the Q&A at the end. But with that being said, our chat is being monitored by our team, so please feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat windows, and we'll try to answer them during the presentation or at the end during the Q&A if needed. This is the agenda for today. We're going to go through some introductions at the beginning, followed by a day in the life of the tech, followed by OEE, and at the end we'll wrap it up with Q&A. So getting to the introductions, my name is Adrian Lapola and I work for OneSource Distributors as our Information Software Business Development Manager on our industrial team. I've been working for OneSource for the past 13 years, where I originally came on board and served as our senior network engineer in our IT department. However, with this whole IT-OT conversion that's been taking place in our industry, I was asked by our previous president about 7 years ago to help kind of lead this conversion on our industrial team. I have a bachelor's of business management from the University of Guam, 25 years of senior level IT experience, where I obtained this through the airline industries, the educational, behavioral health, and the military healthcare industry. Also have several certifications from Microsoft, CompTIA, Cisco, as well as the Department of Homeland Security. We also have two of Rockwell's finest on the line. The first is Chris Lukey. Chris is the regional business leader for Fix Software, a cloud-based CMMS solution that helps maintain our manufacturers plan, track, and optimize their maintenance. His singular mission is to help maintenance leaders move from a reactive to a proactive approach to maintenance. We also have on the line, oh, my bad. It went through one slide too much. Redwan. And Redwan Hussein is a solution consultant from Rockwell in the information and analytics software portfolio. He focuses on helping clients identify use cases for process improvement, software in the industrial environment. And prior to joining Rockwell Automation, Redwan worked for the energy industry and managed reliability projects ranging from substation equipment upgrades to analytics for electric vehicle charging. He holds a Bachelor of Science in the Electrical Engineering from New York University and is currently pursuing a Master's of Information and Data Science at UC Berkeley. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Chris. Chris, are you out there?
I'm here. Thank you for the kind intro, Adrian. All right, I will dive in. So as Adrian mentioned, I work for Fix Software, one of Rockwell's latest acquisitions. Fix is a CMMS system, a computerized maintenance management system. And rather than tell you like all the features and benefits, if you're in maintenance, if you're a technician, chances are you have some familiarity with what a CMMS is. We'll get into that a little later, but what we're really going to talk about today is we're going to put the context in the day in a life of a tech or someone on a maintenance team, right? So, you know, Adrian mentioned that I'm on a mission to help people be more proactive in the way they plan and track and execute on their maintenance. So, you know, what does life look like for a tech or someone on a maintenance team, right? And you know, whether you're in a food and beverage manufacturing facility or whether you're at a water treatment plant, right? Envision this for your particular scenario. You know, these are different industries, different applications, but a lot of the same rules apply. So let's say I'm a young tech. I've recently joined the maintenance team at a new plant, right? I walk in at the beginning of my shift and I find out the wrapper on line 2 is down, right? You know, typically when I go into work, I'm working off of a spreadsheet that my maintenance team and I share. It says, hey, these are the tasks that we need to do today. And, you know, sometimes we're good about scheduling them saying, hey, we need to do this every month, but it's a spreadsheet, right? So it's not necessarily the perfect source of truth. A lot of times I try to use that to be proactive, but, you know, part of the job is coming in and you find out something breaks, right? So as a maintenance person, I'm used to it. So I walk out on the plant floor. I head over to the wrapper on line 2, and it takes a little time to figure out what the issue is. You know, this is actually a machine that I've never worked on before, right? So takes a little while to walk around the machine, figure out what the issue is, and it turns out one of the motors is out, right? Looks like a belt snapped. So, I realize what that is. I head to the storeroom to grab a new belt and look at what's in inventory, and it looks like we've got the belt we need. Thank goodness, right? Because if it wasn't there, I'd be in a panic. I'd need to order from my distributor to get that shipped in, and that's more downtime, right? So I go out there on the plant floor, I replace the belt, cycle the machine, get it going again, and things are back up and running, right? Only an hour of downtime. It doesn't seem that bad, but do I really know how often that machine has gone down? What am I doing to track that machine performance in terms of what's the uptime? What's the output of that machine? If you're using a system like spreadsheets or pen and paper to manage your maintenance, you don't always know what that information is. So if we can jump to the next slide, I'm going to reiterate what we talked about in terms of 4 common challenges we see maintenance teams face, right? And there are more to this list, but a lot of them fall into these categories from what we find. So in the upper left, unplanned downtime, right? The scenario I was describing, walk into the plant, there's a machine that's down. So immediately we're walking into an unplanned downtime situation. Inefficient maintenance practices is another area we come across, right? In that particular example, I walk out to the plant floor and I've never worked on that machine before. So it takes me a little while to figure out what the issue is and diagnose what's going on. And to further that scenario, parts and supplies management. That's another area where I mentioned in that scenario, it's like, hey, the belt happened to be in that storeroom at that time, but what if the right part's not there? How are you tracking your inventory? If you're doing things manually, you don't always have that visibility, and sometimes those downtime situations can end up getting a lot worse. Not only that, but hey, I went in the storeroom, and what if the storeroom person isn't there for me to check out that part, right? Sometimes you end up using inventory and not logging what you're doing. So then finally, it's lack of visibility to data, right? We're out there, we troubleshoot the machine, we get it up and running again. But at the end of the day, if we're using something like a spreadsheet, right, we don't have any information that says, hey, this machine's broken down 3 times this year, 2 times this year, 2 times this quarter, whatever it is, right? There's some guesswork that's going on. And we're talking about a group of techs, a group of maintenance folks. How do you account for when these people leave, right? You start losing some of that tribal knowledge. So hopefully that scenario illustrated what these situations look like. But I've got some good news as we move into the next slides, is that there are ways to create more visibility, to have a better control of your maintenance processes. So what you're looking at is the dashboard of the Fix system, right? Instead of going in and looking at a spreadsheet, we mentioned that Fix is cloud-based, and what this does is it provides a single source of truth that everyone on the maintenance team can look at, whether they're in the plant, whether they're on their computer, wherever that is. And these dashboards can be customized so that they're valuable for whoever the user is. So, I'm looking at a tech dashboard right now. So I'm looking at, hey, what items are low stock? How many overdue work orders do I have? What are my work orders for the day ahead, right? No longer am I relying on a spreadsheet that's updated manually, emailed between people in the plant, or maybe a more cumbersome system that's harder to use, right? The way we like to describe Fixes, we've set it up to be like something that's as easy as to use as an app on your phone, like Instagram, whatever it is. So these dashboards can be customized in whatever way is most valuable for you, whether you're a tech or whether you're someone that's in a maintenance leadership role and you want visibility to all the work that's going on inside your facility. So we can jump to the next slide, because in the scenario I was describing earlier, I was out on the plant floor, but I'm just looking at the machine, right? If I needed documentation on how to troubleshoot something for that machine, I'm probably walking back to the maintenance shop, looking through some file folders, looking through my computer, trying to find the troubleshooting guide. Now, the way we set this up is such that you can have all that information presented right in front of you for the dashboard of a particular asset. Whether we're talking about that wrapper, whether we're talking about a tank at a water plant, whether we're talking about a forklift, as we're seeing in this example, you can see there's a navigation pane that goes over parts and bill of materials. You can have files, you can have custom files in there as well. I mentioned this scenario where I'm a new tech and I'm trying to figure out what the issue is because I've never dealt with this machine before. Well, in a manufacturing world where a lot of people are retiring, you can put videos in here. You can put procedures that show how work is getting done. So if I'm a younger maintenance person, I can just pull it up on my phone, for example, and look at, hey, how do I do this standard operating procedure associated with this piece of equipment, right? So you can log all that in there so the right work gets done quickly. Plus, you have bill of materials in there as well, so you can make sure when you're heading to the storeroom afterwards that you're grabbing the right part to put back on that machine. So if we can jump to the next slide, we discussed earlier that, hey, if you jump into work, you're looking at a spreadsheet, maybe you're just looking at Post-it notes that say, hey, this is the work that you need to get done today inside of the facility from a maintenance standpoint. Well, you can generate work orders based on time schedules, based on meter readings, right? You can say, hey, after this many rotations, this is when you need to go do that work. And you can track all this using a lot of the equipment that Rockwell Automation provides. And we'll get to this later in the presentation when we talk more on Redwan's topics. But I want to bring you to the mobile environment, right? I lifted up my phone a second ago. So let's jump to the next slide and you'll get a screenshot of what things look like when you're actually on the plant floor. Again, I said we wanted to make an app that's as easy to use as Instagram or very intuitive, right? I can just scroll through the tasks that I need to get done, or I can scroll through the inventory that we have to see what we have in stock and check these off as I go and complete it from my phone. One of the things that we often see, this goes back to that data comment, is hey, when you get that like work on the machine completed saying, hey, this work order is done, I've got wrapper 2 up and running again, you don't always have a way to log that, right? Chances are you're already moving on to the next maintenance task. But again, cloud-based CMMS that you're accessing from your phone or from the maintenance shop, when that work is done, you log it in. And even, I know in a lot of manufacturing facilities, you don't have like an internet connection, right? Even if that's the case, once you get internet connection again, it marks that work order is completed and you move on to the next thing. So you constantly have that stream of saying, hey, this was the last time there was an emergency work order done on this piece of equipment, or hey, this was the last time this proactive preventative maintenance task was done on that piece of equipment. So let's jump to the next slide as well. Same thing with checking out parts. You can look at all the parts that you have in your system from your phone, or if we look at the next slide, you can see it within your inventory as well. You can look at different sites, you can look at different storerooms you have in your facility to check the minimum and maximum levels to make sure the right things are there. And by the way, when you're going through that work order and completing that work, you can log which parts you're using in there. So you don't need to remember to go back to the storeroom and tell the storeroom clerk that, hey, I use these parts. It's automatically communicated, and it can even be tied into your ERP system. If purchasing is using SAP, for example, as their ERP to do their job, well, that can automatically get communicated to them through this platform. Again, it really, at the end of the day, automates the process that people are going through and eliminates the things that you need to remember to do after you complete a maintenance task. You can be focused on getting that maintenance task completed as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and not having to worry about all the back-end documentation because you're doing that as you go. I have one more slide. I mentioned at the start that there are a lot of there's access to data issues that you have when you're using, let's say, a more manual method of tracking your maintenance. At the end of the day, Fix has over 130 pre-built reports. You can also tie in with Rockwell Automation as well to get more machine data. Redwan's going to talk about OEE data after this is done. But I picked this one to give a quick example of, hey, what type of data might you be looking at? Well, you can look at how much unscheduled versus scheduled maintenance you're doing. So back to the original point, in the spirit of being more proactive with the way maintenance work gets done, the whole idea is you get these systems in place and you start building up the amount of work you take care of in advance. Because at the end of the day, we'd love to be in a scenario where you're taking care of less emergency breakdowns and you're able to proactively plan and execute on the maintenance that needs to be taken care of before things become an issue. So that's an overview of Fix CMMS. I hope this story was helpful. Redwan is up next. So hey, thank you for the time and attention as we went through this part of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it. All right, next up we have Redwan. Redwan, are you out there?
I'm here. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Chris. So I'm just going to pivot over to a couple other tools that work very well with Fix for more of an enhanced experience. And before I talk about OEE, Chris was mentioning how there could be visual aid that supplements the new technician's experience of working through different work procedures. Now imagine the new tech comes across a job that they haven't come across before, or a scenario that's a little out of the norm. And the subject matter expert isn't available because you're either working on something else, or the subject matter expert is located elsewhere and you just can't get to the new tech. What do? Um, you can use extended reality to communicate with team members remotely. So if you go to the next slide, um, you could imagine having a video calling capability so that you can show exactly what's going on, what the real-time conditions are. And the SME would be able to make annotations on your screen and show you here, maybe hit this button or open this cabinet and check this out. And this will give you the opportunity to not only fix things in real life, but also be able to export all of the annotations that were made during the phone call, and save them for future. In addition to having remote collaboration, you can also augment work instructions. What I mean by that is having images and visuals be superimposed on top of what you're already looking at. So Chris had showed you a mobile view of Fix. You could use that same device to basically, and use the camera on that device to look over your workspace and see arrows and all sorts of helpful instructions pop up. So here, go to this area and open this, or hit this e-stop. There's also an electronic checklist that's embedded into this experience. So you can make sure that the technician is working as safely as possible and also in compliance with any kind of regulatory procedures that they need to be aware of. You can take this experience one step up and add three-dimensional objects. So if you're not aware of, if you're not sure if a machine is safe to operate, you can actually have physical or virtual images that can pop up on the screen to show you if something is safe to access. And so this is all part of the Vuforia package, and we can speak to you about this if you have any questions about it. So now moving on to the next slide. So I just want to pivot over to OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. And so simply put, OEE is a measure of how available your machine is with respect to its performance and the quality of the goods that it's producing. So you can think of it as a rating that lets you know, am I optimizing my profit for the amount of time that this machine is running? So the higher your OEE count, the lower your costs are, and the more efficient you are being with it. And so there are chances that many of you are already doing OEE calculations by hand or in a spreadsheet. You just might call it something very different. And so if you move on to the next slide, it might look something like this. You're trying to calculate all of the metrics that are related to your KPIs. You might be getting data from your machines or from your controllers, and it's a very tedious process. It's something that you need to continuously update, just so you can figure out what the loss capacity is. So if you look at the red bar that's on the bottom, and you want to shrink that red bar as much as possible. Now, what if I told you that there's a software that can automate this feature for you so that you just focus on doing your job and making sure that the machines are being maintained throughout the day. So what a software-based OE looks like, if you go to the next slide, it's a series of dashboards that'll communicate directly from your controller and get real-time data to help you understand what your events are, what your faults are, and how your machines are performing. and it provides this data to you with context. So, during which shift is my OE being affected the most? Which lines or which machines are misoperating more frequently than others? And when I say event, you can self-define what an event looks like for you. So an event could be, scheduled maintenance. Maybe your OE is being affected because there's scheduled downtime, or maybe it's being affected because certain machines have a common failure mode. And so an OE dashboard like this can also help you perform root cause analysis by pinpointing exactly where you need to um, make changes to your automation system. And so moving on to the next slide, just want to put all these concepts together. OEE can be a very powerful tool for analyzing your entire system from a bird's eye perspective and identifying the reasons for downtime, any potential problematic machines. And once you've identified these areas, you can start creating digital work practices, work instructions, and be more proactive with the work practices by using Fix and ensuring that all technicians have the same training, the same set of procedures, and whatever they need to be successful at their jobs. And after standardizing your practices, you can start realizing any cost savings and look for an uptick in your OEE rating. And once you do that, you pretty much have a continuous improvement cycle where you constantly look for new areas of improvement until you've exceeded your goals and you create new ones. And Chris, I'll just kick it back to you for any final words.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, right? To really bring this all together, we talked really about scheduling maintenance and being proactive from, manually scheduling what time things should take place, every, certain number of cycle counts, every quarter, every month. The real power of this comes from being able to tie in data from the controller that looks at vibration monitoring, sensors, speeds, feeds, temperatures, etc. So at the end of the day, that scenario we described at the start, maybe it never needed to happen if you had the right sensor on that type of equipment or you were monitoring for vibration on that motor. You can catch these issues before they ever become issues. So it really ties into that total cycle when you're leveraging that whole Rockwell platform. So really appreciate everyone's participation today, and we'll be sticking around here for questions that anyone may have.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Really, really good, valuable information, especially in today's day and age where a lot of us are being asked to do more with less. So I'm going to open up the mics. Are there any questions in the chat, or anyone want to unmute and ask any questions to the Rockwell panel that we have here today? If not, I have one question for you. So, where would we start? If you had any recommendations, guys, we have some customers out there, maybe they are looking for some assistance, how they can, be a little more productive in today's day and age. What would be something you would recommend out to our customers? Where would be a good place to start?
I can kick this off, and then Red One, let me know if you want to add anything after this. But for lack of a better word, I always describe Fix or a CMMS system as a good gateway drug into digital transformation, right? We don't need to think of it as it's a relatively light package that you can enable pretty quickly. We're able to get Fix up and running in 7 days to really do, for the basic functionality, right? To do things like scheduling maintenance, moving the things that you might be doing on a spreadsheet today over into the Fix platform, right? That scheduled maintenance. And then over time, to get more efficient at it, you can start building in those tie-ins to your ERP system, where when you use a part in Fix, it automatically gets communicated. Or when you're pulling in data off the controller, right? Temperatures, vibration data, all of that can be leveraged to trigger work orders. So it's one area where, hey, you don't need to do all of this in day one. Just get the system going, start putting in some of, let's say, those timed maintenance tasks, start there, start getting in the habit, getting people used to using it, and then continuing to build into there as well as you bring in things like OEE data as well. So Red One, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I would just agree with you, Chris. I think CMMS is a good way to get started with your digital transformation. And once you've digitized many of the work processes that tend to be on paper, then it becomes a lot easier to start incorporating things like OEE or extended reality because you've already laid out the foundation. And at that point, we just pretty much start looking into your controller or your existing automation system, and we take a consulting approach to help you pinpoint your problems.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. So are there any other questions out there? If not, we'll probably wrap up for the day, but any questions?
I have a question, Adrian, and maybe
right.
This is directed more for Chris. A lot of our customers have remote sites and access to manufacturing networks is difficult. Could you talk to how what I would need if I'm a maintenance technician and I'm working on the fixed platform? What do I need when I go out to one of these remote sites? Does my phone have to be connected to manufacturing networks? And how does that work?
Great question. So your phone actually does not need to be connected. And we see this, we work in mining applications as well. I describe Fix often as kind of like an industry agnostic solution, right? Same solution that applies across any application that would need maintenance. So let's say you're out in a water wastewater plant, you don't have the best signal, right? You can still go in there, close out your active work orders, the work you're working on your phone. And as soon as you get back into signal range, it's cloud-based, that's when it would update the whole system, right? So do you need to get back into signal range for everyone to get that update? Yeah, but you can still use it. You can use all the same functionality when you're out there at the site, even if you don't have signal, and it'll still be good once you get back.
Thanks.
Awesome.
That's really cool functionality. The other question I had is how can Rockwell or OneSource help me build that parts list? We have a lot of customers that go into their storeroom kind of looking for the part they think they need, but aren't exactly sure what's installed throughout their facility. Is there some way that Rockwell or OneSource can help me, help our customers figure out what we have and then import that into the Fix?
Yeah, I can speak on the Rockwell end, and right off the bat, install base evaluations are often a first thing that we've done with folks that have been leveraging Fix. And then, beyond that, I know companies like OneSource are doing a ton of storeroom services as well that really tie in to what the Fix platform does. The way I look at Fix is it's a natural part of, say you're using a vendor managed inventory through OneSource, for example, right? It's a great tie-in to that as well. So, I think you can probably speak to some of the specific things OneSource does, but a lot of the things that we've been doing for our customers for years really do complement and tie into the Fix platform.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great insight. Thank you, Chris. Any other questions out there? All right. Well, we really appreciate your time on this. Please feel free to reach out to any of the OneSource industrial team members here. We can definitely get Fix or any of our OEE Vuforia solutions out in front of you. We understand where you're coming from. We're in that same area. Everyone's being asked to do a little bit more with a little bit less. So these are just some of the tools we have here at Rockwell that we'll be able to offer through OneSource for you. So please reach out to us. We'd love to see how we might be able to help. That being said, thanks again.